I'll now hand over to Louise Kelly from Carbery for an interview with Phil Healy. But just before, let's remind ourselves of Phil's achievements last summer.
Canis de Rochied Meder Brenner Healy Toshi Takamach Marvach Train Agassi Wadron Tossenchen Garcia Fosakup Agastaftanich Todd Healy Wesley Safton Tossen Wesley Brenner Shino Healy August on Escarfad Phil Healy Fichit 3 second Heaniev Docreta Harbor and Chino Phil Healy Conchianur Launchin on Escarfadek and Yurdishium PB Takahane.
Good evening, everybody. We're lucky enough this evening to be joined by local, now national, and I'm sure to be international legend, Phil Healy. Phil, I'm sure, needs no introduction, but was kind enough to join us after an exceptional year's performance where she represented Ireland around the world and particularly at the Tokyo Olympics. So we're going to ask Phil a few questions for you this evening, and she'll be sticking around for the Q&A session afterwards as well. So welcome, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a million for having me. It's an honour to be at an event like this, and it's something different for me, certainly. So, no, it's great to be speaking here tonight and for the Q&A later on as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Super. Thanks, Phil. So as you know from our chats, this session we have been doing for the last few years to kind of kick off 2022 in a good, positive way for our community of farmers and farmer suppliers. So we're going to be talking to you about kind of your own motivations and your goal setting and kind of what you understand to be kind of the factors behind your success. But I think let's start off maybe for anyone that's not familiar with a little bit about your life yourself, kind of where you're from, where you grew up, a little bit about your family. Obviously we know you're from West Cork, but where exactly?
Yeah, so I'm from Ballina. I grew up in Ballina all my life, so I'm 27 now. So it's probably been a good, God, I'd say 8 years before I've actually been living properly in Ballina, just with college and different things like that. So I have one older sister and two younger brothers. So my older sister used to always lead the way in running. Like, she was always the quick one. She was always known as the runner of the family. And I suppose it started back in like school sports, going to school in primary school in Enniskeane. She would always have been winning the school sports, and then with the community games. And there was one day Johnny Caulfield from Enniskeane asked her to join the athletic club because he was heavily involved in the community games, and we weren't in an athletic club at that point. So I was more going with her to keep her company. And she was 13 at the time, so I was 11. So it was at that time I was doing all the sports, camogie, football, hurling when you could play it with the boys, and then I stopped off. But yeah, it was just more going into band and then to join the athletic club, different group of friends there, and I was going for having the crack, to be honest. And I suppose right through the ways I continued all the sports up until I was about 17, so I was 5th year in school. There came a point where my athletics coach was like, oh, maybe the athletics isn't the sport for you. Like, I would have tried every single event, and by no means was I any standout performer in any way. Like, I wouldn't have been making finals or different things like that, but I continued it because I enjoyed it. Brilliant. I loved going to training. I loved having the outlet. It was a different group of friends, and I think it was, yeah, when I was 18 years old, then I fully realized that I actually had the potential to continue this further, because I went to European Junior Championships in Italy. They were 2013. I went in ranked in the 20s, and I came out 4th. So that was the point for me where I realized I could fully go at this. I had just finished my leaving cert of moving to college to UCC. So at that point I decided to change coach. Everything was new and everything was a fresh start, and it all kicked off from there, really.
Brilliant. And you grew up on a farm, is that right?
Yeah, so the farm is literally just 100 meters up the road. So we would definitely have been up there when we were younger, feeding calves, doing different things like that. And no, it was great growing up, and it was something that we enjoyed. And like, even to this day, like our coaches would say, you certainly had that natural strength and different things like that. And that certainly was doing from a bit of manual labor around the place.
Bit of like early days chasing broke out calves and stuff, kind of, you know,
Oh,
introducing the speed factor.
absolutely, chasing after them when we were letting them run past us when we were supposed to be blocking them, different things like that. But yeah, no, it was great, and it certainly brought a different element to life as well, just that country living and just enjoying being out in the countryside, and I suppose just like running free. And yeah, no,
Sure.
it certainly stood to us the whole ways.
And so it was kind of when you, I guess, started in UCC, and then were you running for UCC at that time as well, or running for Ireland, or what was the next phase, I guess, when you decided that this career had kind of serious potential?
Yeah, so I started off in UCC at the end of 2013. I did children's and general nursing, so I certainly made it tough for myself, balancing the night shifts, the long hours, 13-hour shifts back to back as a student. But I was training away at the same time, and we went to a major championship every year. And I suppose I was running for Bandon at the time, and I was running for Ireland as well at the time, but it came to a point where it wasn't possible to give the sport 110% while giving college 110% as well. And for me,
Sure.
education is just as important as the sporting side. And I suppose it was the course that I chose that wasn't conducive to this sport. So at the end of third year, I got an exit route out. So I still graduated with a health science degree, did really enjoy the nursing, but I was thinking like, okay, maybe when I'm 35, 40s is something that I'm going to stay with, and it probably wasn't. I would have branched off in some way. So I was like, right, I'm 20, 21 now. Why not move now if it's not something that I'm going to stay with? And I remember my coach always said to me, don't look back with regrets. And that was my opportunity at that time to make the move and give the sport a shot. And I moved into an career in IT. Still had all my degrees the whole ways up because I wasn't leaving college with nothing as such and having no fallback. So I graduated with a higher diploma in UCC, and then I went on to WIT then because my training group was based down here in Waterford as well. So that probably was the start of another further probably development in the education side of things. I completed my master's in enterprise computer software, and the running took a massive, I suppose, improvement as well, because I had my coach around me all the time. Up to that point, he was living in Wexford, I was living in Cork. I didn't have my training group and different things like that. So it certainly had our challenges, but we overcome them because I had no other choice as such, and you have to deal with what you have. And obviously then when we came together, it was a lot more conducive to performance.
Brilliant. So obviously there have been many years of hard work leading up to this year, but 2021, you've had a good, amazing run of success, but 2021 in particular has been a huge year for you. So I guess take us through some of the highlights of this year for you personally, and kind of was this in the plan? Have you been kind of building up to this being the year, or are we kind of looking forward to hopefully better things to come again from you?
Yeah, 2021 certainly was a massive year, and obviously it was a very uncertain year at the same time, and that was hard as an athlete because we weren't sure if competitions would go ahead. Could we travel? Were Olympics going to go ahead? They were already postponed a year, and we had everything geared up for 2020, and then what you've worked for so many years is just taken away from you. So
Sure.
you then have to pick yourself back up and fight for that performance in 2021. And there was all these thoughts in my head, right? I was performing really well in 2020 before everything locked down. Am I going to be performing the same way in 2021? So like, every year has unknowns, but I am very lucky that 2021 was a really good year. I ended up coming fourth at European Indoors in March, over 400, and that set me up for qualification as well for Tokyo later in the summer. And yeah, it was just an unreal summer, like to qualify for the Olympics in 3 events, make the Olympic final with the mixed 4x4 team. That certainly went beyond my expectations, and then to go out and perform individually as well in 2 events and be the first Irish female to get there in 3 individual events. Like it made history along the way, but at the same time, I work so hard for it. I'm not like dwelling on that side of things. I'm going out there to perform and do my best all the time, and sometimes we fall short, and I did fall short in qualifying for the semi-final. And I suppose for me, the relay was first in the timetable over in Tokyo, and that probably did add a lot of fatigue, and it was hard to take at the time, because for years and years I'm going out training every single day to perform individually, and athletics is an individual sport. So I suppose knowing what you are capable of and then falling short slightly, like it was 500ths of a second in one event, it was 700ths of a second in another event that I fell short of qualifying for the semi-final. But end of the day, I left Tokyo as an Olympic finalist with the relay. But you always want more, and I suppose that creates that hunger to drive on more into this year then as well.
Sure. Well, we are incredibly proud of you. And it was incredibly exciting summer here to have one of our own, as they say, performing, and we had a great representation from West Cork as well, which was incredibly exciting. Tell us a little bit, I suppose, about being in Tokyo and the experience of being an Olympian. How did you find it?
Yeah, it certainly was a bit mad, and like I suppose we flew over 2 weeks before we actually moved into the Olympic Village, so we were staying about 4 hours from Tokyo in Fukuroi. It was where the Irish rugby stayed in 2019 for the World Cup, and it was an unbelievable experience. Like, we were very lucky in comparison to other countries. We had a hotel purely for us. Other countries were mixing with the public, and they were confined to their rooms. They were escorted to dinner. They weren't allowed to leave the hotel. We weren't allowed to leave the hotel grounds either, but we had freedom, and we had room to move about and different things like that. Sure. Our track, our facilities were all within a short bus journey, so we really had a great team building camp. There was a lot of sports moving in and out within the Irish team, and there was great morale overall. It was definitely thoroughly enjoyable. It was different, because we weren't going to Olympic ceremonies. There was no one in the stand. There was a stand that fills 80,000 people, and you walk out onto the track and it's dead silence. So that was a bit mad in that way, but I think we would take all of that for the Olympics going ahead, instead of having to postpone it year after year for things to return to somewhat normal. But end of the day, it was thoroughly enjoyable. It was hard, but I think even though we had empty stands and different things like that, you could really, really feel the support from home, and I think it was heightened because there was no fans there as well. And I hadn't been back home. I came home after Tokyo, which was the middle of August, but I hadn't been back in Ballineen since March, and so I had missed all the signs and all the different banners and everything that was around the place. So to come back and actually see that was a bit surreal, knowing that there's this much support there for us, and messages, the videos, everything. It was just, it was crazy, and it was mad that you're out there performing for the country and there's this much support at home for you.
It was great. It was definitely Olympic fever. It was good. It kept us all going, as well as you. So Phil, we might kind of as we come to the end, what we might try and touch on is a little bit about your, I suppose, your kind of personal routines and mindset, attitude yourself. So you touched a little bit earlier on the fact that athletics is in a lot of ways a kind of solitary sport, and obviously similarities to farming there, in that a lot of farmers are kind of on their own and have to motivate themselves, and kind of keep themselves going through a lot of setbacks and that kind of thing. How do you what are the tips that you use, I guess, to keep yourself motivated and focused, and any of those kind of that would be useful for other people to know?
Yeah, so for me, I certainly would be very driven and very determined. So I think if you have a goal that you want to achieve, everything is focused towards that. And I think you just have to take it day by day, because it's the day by day builds the consistency, and then you're building it week to week and you're month to month, and then you're at the end goal before you know it, and you're getting that step closer to achieving it. I think if you look at it as okay, here's the end goal and there's a massive chunk that I need to do to get there, it can become very, very daunting. So it's literally the smallest of improvements or the smallest of steps can make the massive impact and the most rewarding impact. And like, for me, every day isn't good. Like, let's be realistic. Like, there's days where I go out onto the track or in the gym and I'm like, why am I even doing this sport? Like, and then you look back and you're like, okay, you've had these thoughts, but you achieve so much at the end of the day. But there's days where you want to quit, and I said earlier, like, there's days, is this sport feasible to continue on? And I guarantee you, because like, even living in a farmer household, like, it's tough. Like, you see bills coming in day after day, there's things that you have to do, there's like, it's a constant 24/7 job, there's no switch off at times, and it's hard, it's demanding, it's so much pressure, and like, there's so much probably uncertainty and lack of security maybe at times as well. So there is definitely a lot of relatable things, even though you may not think, between the sport and the family or the farmer, like, work life and lifestyle and different things like that. But I think because both of them are so individual, at the same time there is that. And even though athletics is an individual sport, you really have to lean on your team around you as well, and that's no different to everybody else in this call. Like, the people are there around you, people are going through the same thing, they have the same worries, the same fears, and sometimes talking to someone, it could be the smallest of things. Like, I have a sports psychologist, and for me, she's the only female in my team. Like, I have male coaches, physios, nutritionists, and sometimes just going for like a simple cup of tea for me, and like, it just really like removes a lot of like stress, anxiety, different things like that, and it just gives you that boost to just continue on again, instead of like letting it eat yourself up. Because I certainly would be hard on myself if I'm not performing well, or if training isn't going well, and different things like that, and you're actually nearly digging a bigger hole at the same time. And instead of like stopping in your tracks and go, okay, let's reset and refocus here, and let's be practical, because everything isn't going to be positive and sunshine and rainbows all the time. Let's be real, and like, how can we tackle things, how can we make improvements? And it's literally the smallest of steps. And for me, like, I have overcome like a lot of tough times as well. Like, for me, when everything is going really well, back in 2019, I broke my foot, and like, in that instant, my world came tumbling down, because I was in really good shape at that point, and I had a plan of winning a medal at World University Games later that summer. But that plan A wasn't possible anymore, so my plan B became my plan A. And you just have to adjust, you have to adapt, and I think adapting is the biggest thing, and you learn so many lessons through those moments. You may not realize it at the time, but say for me, back in 2019, the way I had to adapt, and the way everything, like, I run all the time, and I'm walking out of a hospital in a boot and crutches, and I can't run, and I'm learning how to walk again, not a mind run. And I think that transferred. Then when we came to lockdown, I was able to cope a lot better. So I think you learn all these coping mechanisms, you build your resilience, you deal with negativity, and you just have to adapt and overcome. And that's literally it. Reset, refocus, and adapt and overcome always.
And you certainly have overcome, as you said, we've all been through a funny few years, but none more so, I think, than our athletes. So Phil, if we might just finish on a positive note and kind of looking forward. I guess we're at the beginning of 2022 now. I know everyone is joking about not wanting to have any high hopes for this year in case we, upset the karma. But I think it's good to have be thinking about the kind of positive things that we can do, I guess, to kind of have a good year. Can you give us a couple of tips for either mindset or training or nutrition or anything along that lines that you'll be doing, or that you would kind of advise, share with people that they could do as well for kicking the new year off to a good start?
100%, and it is about focusing on the positives, because there is so much negativity in life right now, in the world, and just the way things are. So like, you need to have that positive mindset, and as I said, every day isn't going to be a good one, and you just have to accept that, and the next day is going to be better. But it's literally the small things, and it is so important to keep active, to keep healthy, because it's that feel good factor. And whether that's walking for 5 minutes and building it up to 10 minutes the following week, it's the small things, and it's getting out, it's getting in the fresh air. And like, it is hard in that farming lifestyle, because you are constantly going, and when you come home, you just want to sit down and relax. But it could then be the small things of eating healthier to feel better, and you may not realize the impact that it does have, but it is massive. And it could be drinking more water. It's just the small little things that add up over time, and it's just that general healthier lifestyle. And again, don't compare yourself to others. There could be someone else and they're off running half marathons and marathons. Like, you could be just going for, as I said, for a 5-minute walk, getting out, taking the dog out, doing whatever, going for a walk with the family. It's the small things, and they all add up. And it's doing it for you and what you want to do. And it may not be walking, it could be dancing, could be anything at all. And it's just meet people when you can. So like, get that interaction, that feel good factor, and don't lock things up, because it is hard enough time as it is.
Brilliant. One last very local issue that we need to clear up. So obviously we all know you as the Ballineen Bullet down here. The national media rechristened you as the Bandon Bullet when you were doing your Olympic coverage. Are we pulling that back? Are we going back to Ballineen Bullet here now? You can confirm, and we'll set the record straight.
100%. It's always going to be the Ballineen Bullet, born and bred in Ballineen. So Bandon, the only reason Bandon can adopt me for is running for the athletic club. So yeah, it's Ballineen Bullet through and through.
Okay, noted, guys. We have that now on camera. Phil, thank you so much. That was absolutely great. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.